Gary, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on today.
Great. It's great to be here, Killen. We're looking forward to it.
Gary, if someone meets you on the street and asks who you are really, behind the mask, behind the LinkedIn bio, how do you answer that question?
It's a great question. I would say I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I'm a curious, nosy person. I'm an adventurer.
Yeah.
I'm interested in people. I'm passionate about people being, to use the cliche, the best version of themselves. But I suppose professionally, I'm a coach and a mentor. And, with a good dose of an adventure on the side as well.
What kind of adventure are we talking? What does that dosage look like?
Well, I suppose, actually today it's a year ago today since myself and my brothers and my nephew finished our second Camino in Spain and in Portugal. And we've done it again. We've done it previously in 2022. So there's that, and then maybe planning another one next year. But I suppose I see something, and for me, it's all about the question you ask. As if you want to do something, and you want to achieve something, it's all about asking the right question. In other words, not can I do that? It's how do I do that? How can I get that done? That's and adventure can mean anything. It can mean intellectual adventure, physical adventure, whatever. But I didn't, from a professional standpoint, I went on the adventure of becoming a coach in 2018 and jumped into that world full time in 2023. So that's an ongoing adventure with lots of bumps and lots of good spots, but lots of bumps as well.
I'm there. Just one thing. Don't worry, we'll just clip this out. Oops. Next time. Everyone put for a year out to restart.
Yeah, I mean,
I can see that.
Matt is a bit anal.
Okay.
It's good. It's a good way to be.
Still see it. Just me.
yeah.
And to have it in the spot where you can read to post.
Perfect. Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, I'm finished. Yeah.
That's perfect. It's perfect. Straight to you now.
Yeah.
Is that what happened? Okay.
It sounds like you've cultivated a strong sense of self-belief. Where exactly did that stem from?
Yes, that's an easy question to answer, really, because that stems from my upbringing, my parents. As you can see, I was born with a disability, so I've been a wheelchair user pretty much all my life. And I have two younger brothers, and who don't have disabilities, but none of us were treated any differently. So we were all taught that we could do and be anything we wanted to do and be, and that's exactly where that came from. And it doesn't mean that the self belief is there all the time, by no means. But it's, as I say, it's that question that I spoke about of how, not if. That comes from there.
So your parents instilled that belief in you.
Yes, absolutely. And as I say, it doesn't mean that it's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not by any means, but it's part of who I am. It's that optimistic, I suppose, for want of a better word, outlook that I have. It's just part of who I am. It'll never go away. Neither would I want it to either, of course.
Growing up in Ireland with a disability, how challenging was that? Or did you always feel, you said at home it was great because you were treated the same. Was there ever, growing up, was it the case in school, for example? How was school growing up with a disability in Ireland?
Well, I suppose I like the story of two young fish kind of going along, one morning, and they meet another fish, and the other fish says, water's lovely, guys, isn't it? And the two fish look at each other and go, what's water? And it's just, that was the way, it was just the way it was. And school was, I suppose at that point in this mid 70s, there was nothing locally like a special school or anything like that. So it was just, you got on with it. I went to a normal secondary school, or sorry, a normal secondary school as well, but a normal primary school, or a standard primary school. Same as with my brothers, with all my other friends. I was the only disabled person in both primary school and secondary school. So, and was I treated any differently? I didn't see it at the time, to be quite frank, but maybe looking back, maybe a little bit, but no, I didn't really. I did just, like, I got on with it, but so did everybody else as well. They kind of was just me, just accepted me for who I am. I never felt, growing up, I don't think I ever felt any different, really. At least not in my early years. Maybe as as I was in teenage years, maybe a little bit as I got into puberty and all those complicated bits. That was a challenge. It is for any kid, but so it just was what it was. We just got on with it, and again, coming back to what my parents would have instilled in me, and my whole family would have instilled in me. I would have had an attitude of okay, let's just get on with it, and figure out how to do this, which we did.
You hit on a lovely point there. The teenage years, navigating them can be a minefield at the best of times. You kind of made the decision to go down the route into the tech industry. Was that something you always envisioned for yourself?
That's a very interesting question, because the answer is yes, but I have an uncle who used to sell computers, and we got a computer in my family when I was 16, and so from that point onwards, kind of it was assumed, and and I kind of assumed that computers, technical stuff, computer programming, and computers in general would be a great path to go down. So from about age 16, that was the path I was going to go down. And I really got into it. I had a computer, as I say, when I think I got the first one when I was 88, which I would have been 16 at the time. And so from that point onwards, it was, the path then was kind of set to me doing computers in college, which is what I did in DCU.
And you spent, say, decades in tech.
Yeah.
On paper, that looks like a stable path. Society might lead you to believe that is the end goal, kind of, that a lot of people are chasing when it comes to get your education, go to college, get your degree, get your nice, safe, secure job. What made you pivot from that?
Well, from as I say, I got my first computer at the age of 16, but also around the age of 16, I found what I very, very much later on found to be personal development. And I really, really struck me the fact that this bit, you could actually, control this bit. And much later on, I figured out the reason that it resonated with me, because things were and are limited for me physically.
Yeah.
But this bit works okay. So I was going to, probably subconsciously made the decision that I was going to make the most of this bit. So I started reading personal development books when I was 15, 16, and kept going, and just I was really interested in the whole prospect of, or the whole idea of making them, that I was in control of what goes on up here, and I was in control of, my thoughts, my mindset, and how I could use that to be the best version of myself, again, to use that cliche, which I actually like because it's true. And so that became an interest, but no more than an interest. And, that it never went away. And when I met my wife, I went to college in DCU from 91, 95, met my wife in 98. We got married in 2000. And that interest just never left me. I had a job in company in telecoms company in Galway. So, worked in a bit in Limerick, and then worked in Galway still in Galway since 2000 in the software industry. Kept doing that, but and kept the personal development kind of thing in the background as an interest, but no more than that. And in 2018 actually, I gave up alcohol. I just kind of said, oh, I'm in my 40s now, that's just had enough of it. And that just changed everything for me. It's nothing that things were catastrophic or anywhere close to them with the alcohol. It was just getting in my way. It was just like, 2 or 3 times a week, maybe a bit more. And it's just, low grade, semi-permanent hangover, and kind of, thinking, is this it? I dumped that in 2018. And, the energy and clarity that came with doing that just changed everything for me. And then I went online, and I just saw this whole idea of coaching, and I thought, whoa, what would that be like? And it was almost like a light bulb went on. It's just, because I'd almost put myself in a great position to be a coach with reading all this personal development stuff for years and years. Never thinking I could take it anywhere near a career. So I went online, and as it turns out, and if this isn't a signal, I don't know what is. I researched what coaching courses, and there was an open day in Galway in a hotel like 4 or 5 miles away from me, happening the very next day. So I went and did that and signed up, and here I am now. I mean, there's a long pathway between 2018 and now, but so here I am now as a full-time coach. And it didn't start like that, obviously, but we can go into that if we want to.
Can we rewind for a minute and double tap on the point you made? Is this it? You came to that question 40s?
Yeah, 45.
45. The first thing that comes to mind is purpose.
Yeah.
For someone, say, that doesn't have a clear signal of purpose in their life, what would you say, maybe to someone listening? How do you kind of identify and find that purpose if there's no clear sign anywhere you look?
You've got to know what your values are. And values can get overcomplicated. But what do you need in your life to be at your happiest and your best? Ask yourself that question. Keep asking yourself that question. And it's great. It's all very well me asking the question now and thinking, and getting you to answer it. That question won't be answered in a day. It might not be answered in a week or a month or a year. But ultimately, if you keep asking the question, and are truthful and honest with yourself, then you'll find what you need in your life to be at your happiest and your best, and that's your values. And if you align your actions with your values, align your career even with your values, you'll get to a place where what you do doesn't seem like a job. I'm a coach, as I say, a coach and a mentor, and what I do doesn't seem like a job. It doesn't seem like a job because it's what I think I was put on this planet to do, to support people to be the best version of themselves, or to get to places they don't believe that they can get to, because I believe they can get there, and that's all that matters for me. And I will hold that belief for people until they can hold it for themselves.
So it all starts with awareness, essentially.
Yeah, and courage to ask the question, but also courage to wait for the answer too. The answer might not appear for years, but it does eventually. And if you keep asking the question and keep being open to what's around you, and asking yourself the question, maybe what's missing, and it does. If you find out what's missing and it scares you, doesn't mean you have to change things utterly and completely straight away. That's not the real world we live in. And that's the kind of work that I do now, supporting people to get to those places.
So you wouldn't be for the idea of burning the boats?
Absolutely not. No,
Sorry.
for cutting across you, no. Absolutely not. I am absolutely not, or never will be on that boat. So pardon the pun.
The people that kind of push this message, what's the triggering part for you that you don't agree with?
For me personally, it's security.
Okay.
One of my values is security, and for most people have a mortgage. Most people have bills to pay. Most people have a family to support. Most people can't burn the boats, and burn the bridges and kind of just leave and just pack up and move so therefore, does that mean that most people can't change their lives and be exactly who they want to be and do what they want? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that you follow a different path. You do it in a different way. You do it in increments over probably much longer than you think it takes, because everything takes longer than you. Everything will take longer than you think, in my experience.
Yeah, Hostad's law.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I as I say, became a life coach in 2018 and was doing it part-time, morning, evening, weekends for 5 years.
Mm.
And yeah, 5 years. And until I decided that I was going to do it professionally, and I just built things up over the course of 5 years.
It's social media, isn't it? It shines the shiny object syndrome, or it dangles the carrot in front of your nose, thinking you're going to have this dream life in 3 months, but really it takes a lot longer than that.
Yeah. And when you get there, if there is a there, and it's a journey, not a destination necessarily, is it going to be an absolute dream and everything is going to be rosy in the garden and you're going to feel fulfilled and happy and content every day? No, absolutely not. You still got a life to live. So you got to live in the real world, but things will feel, when you're there and you're aligned to your values and you're aligned to who you really are, then things just feel easier.
So of the clients that you work with, what do you think is the biggest lie that they have been led to believe when it comes to changing in their life?
I think I would use a different word in terms of lies, in terms of, well, actually maybe I wouldn't, because I think it's the stories we tell ourselves. And maybe it's to do with social media, maybe it's to do with whatever it is, maybe it's media in general telling us that that we can do everything and be everything in a month or a week. But it's probably more the stories that we tell ourselves, like I can't, and the big lie is these absolutes. I am, I can't, I can, I never, I always. If you hear any of those and they are ending in a story that you don't like I'm the kind of person who, I'm the kind of person who, I'm an all or nothing person, is something that I hear all the time. Those are the lies that we tell ourselves. And it's through no fault of our own. It's these things that we pick up and we don't question these stories that we tell ourselves. So, and that's the thing. That's my invitation to people when I work with them, is is to poke at that. Is actually, okay, where's the evidence? Where are you an all or nothing person? Really? Show me the evidence that supports that. Are you a person that says you want to do a marathon? Are you the person that runs 20 miles the first day? Well, no, I'd build it up. Well, really, are you an all or nothing person then? And that's an awkward metaphor, but it's questioning the stories we tell ourselves I think is the biggest lie. We have to question those stories that we tell ourselves, and we don't tell ourselves those stories through our own fault. Is that we've inherited a lot of those from our parents and from our parents' parents, and it's not their fault either. Mm-hmm. So it's because they've inherited them. So it is the stories we tell ourselves.
Guy Ritchie told a good story about the external world is always going to try and tell you that you're not enough. And that battle between your internal world that you always are, I think it's something a lot of people, it's pretty much the journey of life.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not saying this from a place of believing it 100% all the time, but you talk about enoughs there. That's our default. We are enough. We will always be enough. Just as we are. We don't need to change. But I think that's the constant battle for all of us, to actually buy into that story. And maybe some of us might buy into it for 30 seconds at a time. Certainly, that's my experience. Because, you know, as you say, the world is very, very good at telling us that we're not enough, and we have to buy this course, read that book, and do this, do that, and then we'll be enough. Then we'll be fixed, because we're actually broken. But we're you know, it's that message. You know, if we're talking about what I believe I do, is that it's that message that I rail against, that message that I try to counteract with the client people that I work with, is, you know, where's the evidence, and that you're not broken, so you don't need to be fixed. I will not. First thing I will say to most people, that if it comes up in the context of that we're talking, is you don't need to be. I'm not going to give you a fix because you're not broken. Now, could things be better? Yeah, absolutely. But fundamentally, you're not broken, so you don't need to be fixed.
And with the clients you work with, is that something you have to kind of instill into them to repeat this behavior on a daily basis?
Absolutely, it is. And the willingness to actually do that, the willingness to actually dig in and question these stories that they're telling themselves and other people are telling them, the willingness, that's all I ever need to see in a client to say yes to work. The willingness to actually do the work over however long it takes. Not necessarily with me, but however long it takes for them. Just to actually ask another question, or ask a different question.
It must be challenging to give up the drink in a society like the one we're immersed in.
Yeah, I found an organization called One Year No Beer, a UK organization that was doing it a different way. And you know, I had what I would class as a very middle of the road, very rural Irish relationship with alcohol. You know, nothing, you know, going out on a Saturday night and with my brothers and that kind of stuff. I didn't drink until I was about 19 or 20, but then I took to it like I took to water, and did it for 40 years, 20 plus years. And when I found One Year No Beer, the whole concept of that organization, which I now do a lot of work for, is that, you know, it's not about what you're actually losing, it's what you're actually gaining. And that to me is for any behavior change, whether it be alcohol or anything else, is that when you're moving away from a habit that isn't serving you, that's the first part. And when you move away from what you don't want, that's great, but that'll get you started, but it sure as hell won't keep you going. What keeps you going is moving towards what you do want, and that's the work I will do a lot of the time with One Year No Beer.
And for you personally, after giving up the drink, what kind of effects did that have downstream into, say, your business, into your personal life? How did you feel?
I didn't have a business at that point, actually. Okay. I actually didn't. I was working in IT, and the two words that I will use to describe what the impact it had was energy and clarity. And, you know, when as I said, I was waking up kind of with this kind of low energy, kind of lethargy, often, let's say. And when it was, when I stopped drinking, it's almost as if someone turned the light on and, made the color brighter, and, I had energy and had clarity. And, of course, as I say, I was married, and I've still been married for 25 years. And myself and my wife would sit in the couch sharing a bottle of wine quite a few times, a couple times a week, maybe more. So that changed. Ultimately, it took me a while to get going, but that shifted. So you have to find different ways to connect. And, at that point I was, 16, 17 years married. So my going out with my brothers on Saturday night, that had long since finished. So I have to find a different, so we didn't do that. So that was okay. But at the same time, we used to meet up every now and again and go for pints. So that shifted. And maybe there's a cost there. And, I wrote a Substack article just recently about exactly that, the cost of not drinking, which nobody kind of talks about, but, that's another story. But, it just what the impact it had really, and I talked about values earlier on, is it actually slowly over time allowed me to align myself with my values. So, and allowed me to actually, I didn't, as I say, I didn't have a business, but allowed me to actually think about what would it be like to actually have a business? What would it be like to actually work for myself? Which didn't happen for years and years until after I actually thought of the idea. Now, because I was doing it part-time. And so, yeah, so that was, so it basically opened my eyes. It just made me more aware. As you say, you used the word awareness earlier. It just made me more aware of who I am and essentially who I wanted to be going forward. That was the big question of, asking myself the question, who do I want to be? And over time, bit by bit, little bit by little bit, going towards that person.
It's almost like the fog clears.
Absolutely. Good. That's a great way of putting it.
The fog clears little by little, and you can see things that may or may not have been there all along.
And they probably were, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
They were there all along, but you just don't see them. Like, it's not as if the coaching course that I did wasn't run 10 times before. And it's not as if the open days that I went to weren't run 10 times before. They were there, just didn't see them. Didn't have the energy, didn't have the clarity, didn't have the self-belief. Because you see, when you're waking up in the morning and you say, I'm not drinking tonight, and then by 6 or 7 o'clock it's not a bad idea, then what you do is you erode trust in yourself.
Yeah.
Slowly over time. And that's what I did. And I was erode trust in myself to follow through on my own decisions. But when you actually get momentum, and you, rather than beating yourself up for actually doing something you didn't want to do, just recognize that that's completely human. That, as Steve Peters in his book, The Chimp Paradox, in he talks about the chimp brain, and the paradox being it can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And when you're at 7 o'clock in the evening and thinking, a beer is a good idea, that's not the thinking brain. That's not the logical brain. That's not your prefrontal cortex. That's your chimp brain, wanting comfort, wanting safety. So completely human, but not aligned with my values necessarily. So once you stop doing those things and you get more aligned, then you can actually, and this is where you have to do the work of recognizing your success. Saying you're not going to drink tonight or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be that. So making a decision, following through. And then the third step of that, making the decision, following through. Step number 3 is actually acknowledging, cool, fair play, I did that. Pat yourself on the back, exactly that. And then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. And then what do you have it, in a week? You have a bit of self-belief. And then a bit more, and then a bit more, and then a bit more.
Everything has a price.
Absolutely. Yes.
You can't have the easy life, but also the great character.
And yeah, and this is when you're come to that 7 o'clock in the evening and maybe you want to have a beer or have that extra bar of chocolate or that extra slice of cake or whatever it is, you're asking that thing a lot of the time. You're asking it to do a job. You're asking it to make you feel different. You're asking it to numb, or you're asking it to do a job. But when you take that away, well, it's not that the job doesn't need to be done. You just need to do it in a different way. And so in a more natural way. Things like, I do a lot of meditation, a lot of breath work, a lot of journaling, and all those things that we hear a lot about these days. But those have massive value in regulating the nervous system, getting me and you and everyone else into a place where we're just more aware. And, it's not through no fault of anyone's. We're kind of afraid of these feelings of kind of this, this and these habits. These habits are, as I said, the chimp brain, wanting comfort, wanting safety. And, if I was to say, I'm not drinking tonight, or I'm not having that extra bar of chocolate tonight, my brain is going to tell me subconsciously, okay, there's a saber-toothed tiger up your ass and he's about to kill you. So you have to do that. And then you do. But of course, when you look around, you actually face it, just sit and you stare at that. And you go, actually, okay, where's the saber-toothed tiger? And then you find, oh, actually, it's not there. Now, it feels uncomfortable. But once you actually feel the discomfort, you go through it, you come out the other end of it, you go, oh, actually, I can do that. And then you do it again. And then you do it again. And then you do it again.
So processing your emotions versus numbing them.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be processing and, negative emotion or anything like that. It's just, it is a lot of the time, but it doesn't have to be that. It just can be just habit, really. It's just like, you sit down with a beer in the evening. I'm not going to be the one that'll tell you that, sitting down with a beer in the evening is a bad thing. Absolutely not. I'll come on to that maybe later on, but it can be just looking at bad habits and seeing, well, okay, and recognizing and accepting, and that, well, it's just a habit. Yeah. And, if I get more aware of it, I can actually see it and, feel the craving or whatever it is, feel it. And, okay, just be aware of it and go, oh, okay, and bring a bit of curiosity to it rather than judgment. And curious, okay, what is that now? What am I feeling? And just as that might be that word you use, processing, but it might be, or just getting curious about it and actually then go, okay, well, what if I actually just felt it? Sometimes it's like a wave. It comes, it crests, and it falls again, and then you're fine again. But but that's the hard work. When you talk about, the hard work of changing your habits, that's it. That's the hard work.
A lot of the times, I used to get this intense craving every Friday or Saturday night for a beer. As soon as the weekend comes, it's like your condition, your nervous system can feel it. But the last few months, I've noticed that when I feel the craving coming along, I can now identify why I feel the craving, what is kind of triggering the craving. Maybe it's a lack of socializing throughout the week while you're working on the business, and then the weekend comes and you're kind of feeling the craving. Yeah. But once you're aware of why the trigger happened in the first place, the craving loses its grip.
It does.
And you're no longer being controlled by the puppet master.
Yeah.
You can actually see it and pull the strings yourself, or choose not to pull the strings, which is really powerful.
Absolutely, it is. And the phrase that I love is, what you're aware of, you can control. What you're not aware of controls you. And so exactly that. You once you're aware of it, it loses its power. Mm-hmm. And when you're not aware of it, then we're giving it the power subconsciously, but we're giving it power. And that's really any habit, really. Any habit that's not serving you.
Have you read Atomic Habits? I presume you have.
Several times.
Front to back.
Yeah.
That was actually a big one for me. Probably 2 years ago. I was stuck in corporate, very unhappy in a 9 to 5 in corporate. And Yeah, using booze to numb out at the weekends. But it all comes back to your habits. It all comes back to the actions you take on a daily basis, which will ultimately lead to the outcome.
Yeah, process. You mean as James Clear said, you don't rise. I'm probably paraphrasing, but rising to the level of falling to the level of your processes rather than rising to the level of your habits. So it's about process. The process.
Your systems, I think, is the word.
Systems, yes,
Yeah.
systems, exactly.
You fall to the level of your systems.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay. So for someone listening that wants to implement better systems in their life, to kick the bad habits and replace them with better ones, what are kind of the messages, or what are kind of like the strategies to create a life with better habits? What's kind of on a fundamental level? Where do you start?
3 things I would say. One is awareness. Maybe 4 things actually. One is awareness of actually, these habits. What are they? Write them down. What are they? And just because you write them down doesn't mean you're going to change them, but just write them down. 2 is, and these aren't in any particular order, 2 is a bit of courage. And, courage to realize that you don't have to change all of this immediately. Any of these things that are really, annoying you, maybe your work habit, or might be anything. 3 is, so courage to actually write it down. 1, let me start again. 1, curiosity. Let me start again, actually. So ask the question again.
For someone who wants to change their life, what are the fundamental steps to changing their habits?
I think it's 4 things. 1, we got to be aware of them. Yeah. What are they? Write them down. And that takes a good dose of courage to actually write your bad habits down, or the things that are in your life that you don't want to be there, right? It doesn't matter what it is, really. Just write them down. Be awareness, courage. And then and society will do a brilliant job at this, of judgment. We've got to remove judgment we absolutely got to remove judgment from our own lives. And I'm talking mere about our own self-judgment here, of what am I doing? How am I doing this? And why am I doing this? Why am I doing this over and over and over again? So curiosity is we got to get curious about these things. So where are these things showing up? Why are they there? And what's the job I'm asking them to do? These habits. And the last thing is compassion, self-compassion. Actually, because there's none of us that have any of these habits, I don't believe, that because our brains are quite efficient pieces of kit, is that every habit that we have, whether it's a good habit or whether it's a habit that isn't serving us, or a bad habit, or if you want to call it that, there's a benefit in it for us in some way, whether it be from a primitive perspective or whether it be from a more prefrontal, more logical perspective. There's a benefit. So let's say if we were eating too much chocolate, drinking too much coffee, too much booze, whatever it is, our primitive brain says, if we don't do that, the saber-tooth tiger I was talking about earlier on will come and he will eat us. So that's just being human. So we've got to bring compassion into that instead of beating ourselves up. So compassion, curiosity, courage, and awareness. Not in any particular order, but but bringing that, compassion and curiosity would probably be the 2, I would say, would be fundamental. Being curious about them and just being compassionate towards ourselves. Because then once we're not beating ourselves up for doing it, for doing these things, and we're curious about them, then we can begin the process of actually thinking about, okay, what do we want to do instead? Who do we want to be instead?
I feel like you're very well read. I'd love to know how many books you've read down through the years, Gary. But out of all the archives of knowledge that you've come across, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I'm I think it's just a. I can hear my dad saying it actually is don't cry over spilt milk. What's done is done, and you know, doesn't be, you know, that to me. I will, you know, not. I can hear my father-in-law, who's he's not with us anymore, but I can hear him saying it as well. Is that, you know, there's three places our brain can be at any one time. We can be in the past, or we can be in the future, or we can be right here, right now. And the past and the future have one thing in common: they don't exist. They never will exist. We'll only have now. So looking back, there's two ways to me of looking back into the future, or looking back in the past, and that's two ways, useful ways. One is to learn from it, and two is to get warm and fuzzies from nice memories. Everything else is a waste of time. And looking back, regret, shame, all those things. So we can learn from it, but we have to move on. And the future is the same. Worry, if we're worried about the future, well, the brain is a quantum machine, and you know, probability is a large part of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum, you know, neurology, neuroscience, and probability. So if we're worried about something and we're assigning it a high probability of happening, or sorry, if we're thinking about something and it's a high probability of happening, it's going to go on the worry pile. And if we're excited about something that's got a high probability of happening, then we're going to put it on the excitement pile. But none of this is here. None of this is. It's all in the future, and it'll always stay in the future, because, you know, tomorrow will become the today. If that doesn't sound too metaphysical, but, you know, so I would say the best piece of advice I would be ever given, if I was to restate it, would be stay as present as possible. Stay right here, right now.
That's a lot easier said than done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is a muscle. You got to really, really hone in on that daily to rewire your brain.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying that from a person who's got it completely nailed by any stretch. I don't think any of us have, to be quite frank. Any of us. But it is, you know, it is, once you know the benefit of planning, and I'm not suggesting planning isn't beneficial, it is. But worrying isn't, you know, and regret, shame, and all those things, they're not useful. So that's why I say bring ourselves back into the present as much as possible. And, you know, what can you do with what's around you right now?
You mentioned memories and how we're always looking to kind of, ideally, on our deathbed, we're going to have more good memories to look back on than bad ones. But ultimately, we're going to forget a lot of the things that happen on a day-to-day basis. What's a good way of optimizing your life to create more meaningful memories?
I love the question, because it really speaks to something that's really important for me. Is that, you know, 95% of our lives, 99 maybe, is ordinary. It's just an ordinary day. Like, if I asked you what you were doing on what are we at today? The 22nd of August. What you were doing on the 22nd of August, 2024, I doubt you'd be able to tell me. And, you know, and so a way of actually is living the, you know, today is ordinary, tomorrow will be ordinary, the day after, and of course we'll have those big days when, you know, marriage, you know, all those celebrations, all those huge dates that we'll remember for the rest of our lives, of course, but most of the days will be ordinary. And I think appreciating just ordinary days for as not as I said on a piece I wrote last week, not as a consolation prize, but kind of that's what a life is. It's just those ordinary days well lived. And if we can live as many of them as possible in the way that we want to live them, then you're going to get to that deathbed you talk about. And I reckon if I was to be in that place, and I will be at that place, you know, at some point, make thinking that I'd made the most or as much as I can of those ordinary days, then yeah, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. Gary, you have reams and reams of wisdom to share with people. Where can people find you online?
I'm online at lifedesign.ie, and I'm on Substack, thelifedesigner.substack.com, and they can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Have you thought about keynote speaking?
I have. It's a work in progress.
I think you'd be great. Well, thanks for coming on today, Gary. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Keelan. It was great to be here. Thank you very much.